Mask off. Thank you for that introduction. I do recall, now that you've reminded me, of meeting you when you were with the Corporate Affairs Department and the travails we had when we were investigating Rothwell's. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here this evening to celebrate Mankell's emerging leaders, and it's an honour to be asked briefly to address you. When I asked Ron Manners, the inimitable Ron Manners, what should I talk about, Ron? He said, just do something like inspire the Mankell students, speak about your personal experiences and the importance of taking whatever opportunities come your way. And you've got 10 or 15 minutes to do it. At the end of my speech, if you don't put your hands up and say you've been inspired, I'll be very upset. Now, Ron is, of course, something of a free spirit and a great admirer of the late Lang Hancock, nicknamed Pedal Faster. Pedal Faster, as I read in Ron's book, because sometimes Lang was on the radio and he had to use a pedal radio and he had to go faster sometimes, and they'd say, go on, go faster. And Hancock's name was, or motto I should say, was be yourself. And he believed that one element crucial to success is persistence and hard work. And I think that is a kind of motto and credo that applies to Mankell. The motto of this university, University of Western Australia, is, of course, seek wisdom. It's sometimes said, with age comes wisdom. But Oscar Wilde once dryly remarked, sometimes age just comes along by itself. And as for me, I'm still seeking that elusive wisdom. The older I get, actually, the more acutely I realise how little I truly understand. Mankell is, of course, a combination of Ron's surname and Cal, the common and affectionate shortening of Kalgoorlie, the town where Ron was raised. It's also where my two grandfathers worked a long time ago, one an underground miner and the other working on the railways. And where my eldest grandson is now an engineering student at the School of Mines that Ron attended. Many West Australians, indeed, have some connection with the goldfields, which in the days before Federation revealed a very, very independent and quite rugged approach to life by threatening to secede from Western Australia. Did you know that? Unless it agreed to join the Federation. So the Western Australians, somewhat reluctantly, the rest of them, agreed to join the Federation. Now, I've been asked to speak about my personal experiences, and I haven't got enough time to tell you all of it. But I'll tell you a few kind of vaguely relating to opportunities, which Ron said they should. From Perth Mod, I got a Commonwealth Scholarship to UWA, the only university in the state in those days, and it was free, absolutely free. I was the first in my entire extended family, that's my cousins, my aunts and everyone else, to ever get anywhere near university, and I was quite undecided about a career, but I studied law part-time in the first year to make sure that that's what I wanted to do, and working full-time in the city. And I studied law, graduated, articled to a Perth law firm, and at the ripe old age of 23, they made me a partner, which was terribly generous of them. 6 years later, I started my own law firm, and then years down the track, I joined with my father, who at the age of about 51, left the work that he was doing, and we, with a few others, started a building society, which prospered. We worked hard, and I worked very hard, combined that with sport and surf lifesaving, and I was made a QC at 43. Took on many cases, civil and criminal, some to the High Court, some to the Privy Council. A very lucky career, I must say that. But as is often said, correctly, the harder you do work, the luckier you do get. And that's something that I'm sure Mankell scholars would appreciate. I've always believed that we owe a debt of honour, a really strong debt to the society or the community in which we are so fortunate to live, and which provides us with so many opportunities. Together with my wife Tonya, my sister Carolyn, a retired judge Dennis Reynolds, all four of us UWA law students, or graduates, and Mark Bellini, a Curtin University graduate, I founded McCusker Charitable Foundation some years ago, and the object of that foundation was to provide funds, much needed funds for medical research, among other things, and to foster a culture of giving. It's trite but true that it is really better to give than to receive, provided, of course, you've got enough to give. In 2010, I was astonished to be invited to become the 31st Governor of Western Australia, following my good friend here and former modern schoolmate, Ken Michael. He's here tonight. I decided after considerable hesitation, I had to think about it for a number of days, and of course earnest discussion with my dear wife Tonya, to accept the offer. We saw the position as capable of fostering philanthropic principles and a better understanding and appreciation in the community of our system of government and the principles on which it is based of freedom and justice. And freedom in all its varieties, in particular, freedom of speech. We seized that opportunity that was presented to us in many ways. Not the least was a program, which was again Tonya's brainchild, we called Kids Who Give, involving visiting well over 100 schools throughout the state, from Esperance to the south to as far north as Wyndham. And the children at these schools were encouraged to devise various ways of helping others less fortunate. And you'd be amazed at the ingenious ideas and projects that they came up with. And they all took such great delight, enthusiasm in what they were doing. The best of them presented their ideas and programs at Government House, and the top ones were awarded prizes out of our own money, not state money, and they were to be used to improve amenities at the schools. And at each visit, I gave a short speech to explain in very simple terms our system of government and what the role of the governor was. It was a very successful project and quite exhilarating to see the enthusiasm of the children, I said. Among the many interesting experiences of governor was a return visit that Tonya and I made to Perth's sister city, the governor of which we'd met at Government House in Perth. There was a great spirit of goodwill created, and one which we endeavoured, I as governor, to foster. At one of a number of ceremonial banquets, the Chinese put on these marvellous banquets in huge halls. There was a Chinese orchestra of young people playing various instruments, and the governor was pretty keen on music, and he and I got up, and together we sang to the accompaniment of the orchestra. We sang, "Click, go the Shear Boys." And the crowd loved it, and the governor absolutely enjoyed it. After my term as governor ended in 2014, I returned to practice law. Some of my contemporaries at that stage, in fact all of my contemporaries from law school, had long retired and thought I was crazy, and they're probably right. But they said, "Why are you doing it?" I said, "Because I love the law," and I do. And I took up a number of directorships on charitable not-for-profit bodies and chaired in succession 2 state government-appointed committees, which resulted in the passing of laws, first on voluntary assisted dying, and the second on the recent one on electoral reform. The foundation also funded the establishment at the University of Western Australia of the McCusker Centre for Citizenship in 2015. We wanted undergraduates to become aware of some of the challenges in our community to gain a greater understanding and to learn how they might best contribute to the community and reach and cater for the needs of others less fortunate. Many of us grow up with a strong sense of social justice, but may not be aware of the challenges and the role they can play in giving back. The centre drew on the experience of 2 United States bodies, but there was nothing equivalent, and still is nothing equivalent, in Australia. The main program offered to the students who get into the centre is the internship program. And essentially, students undertake pro bono a specific project for at least 100 hours with one of the centre's organisations, the partner organisations that have agreed to be involved in this. It's through this very practical experience and completing the project, students learn about a specific issue within the community and how they can make a contribution and benefit to serving the community. From a very small beginning in 2016, the centre has grown dramatically. In the first year, 16 students commenced their internship. Now, since then, over 1,650 students have undertaken the internship, contributing over 178,000 hours in service pro bono to the community. Students come from all faculties of WA, and the students undertaking the internships are completing a 100-hour project with one of these organisations. Some of the projects have included development of an app for the Albany Men's Health Service, so men can access a wide range of information about mental health. And the young man who was sent down there as an intern wondered what on earth he was doing with it was the men's shed that he was sent to. And he didn't know what, he felt like a fish out of water for a few days, but at the end he was so happy with his experience that he volunteered to go back and did. Travelling to regional and remote communities with organisations to offer sporting programs, communities that may not have had access previously to these programs, developing programs for at-risk kids in disadvantaged communities, and applying for funding to boost services for homeless people. They're just some examples of the things that these young people were engaged in. There's been a very high degree of satisfaction because it's a very well-run centre, and every student and every organisation involved from time to time is asked to give a report. And 98% of the students, and that wasn't just a sample, every student was surveyed, 98% said they would recommend the internship to other students, which caused a bit of a problem because we got a rush of people trying to get into the internship program. We just didn't have enough staff to cater for them. And 98% of organisations, there are over 300 and growing, said they would recommend the internship to other such organisations. So there's a large waiting list, as I said. Now, I wish to end this address by saying something about the importance of leadership. For this function, of course, is to congratulate emerging leaders. In an occasional address I gave at the UWA graduation ceremony in 2008, I mentioned the many challenges then facing graduates: global warming, climate change, loss of biodiversity, soil degradation, increasing cost of food production, and so on. And the scandal in our affluent society that 1 in 5 members of the society is on or below the poverty line. The alienation, of course, of our Indigenous students, quite a list. Now, 14 years later, I remind myself, those challenges, though serious, are still with us. But they're outweighed, perhaps, some might think, by the COVID pandemic that arose a couple of years ago, the recent floods in New South Wales, and of course, the aggressive, brutal invasion of Ukraine by Russia and the threat that a nuclear war might be precipitated by a dictator hell-bent on restoring the former USSR and destroying the freedoms enjoyed by the people of Ukraine and its feared the neighbouring countries. I refer to those challenges not to cast a pall of gloom over this celebration, but to urge all of the emerging leaders to consider how best you can use the talents and the skills and the education which good fortune and hard work has endowed you with, to assist in meeting those challenges. They are challenges, they're not things to cause you to deter or to give up, but challenges to rise to. And that's why strong leadership is so important. 200 years ago, it was said by an Irish judge, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. We all know that phrase. To ensure that vigilance, the world needs strong, brave leaders. Leaders, of course, like Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, who just a few days ago paraphrased another very strong, staunch leader, Churchill, when he addressed the House of Commons in UK. The democratic free world is in danger of facing a new, unpalatable world order, and it must scale up its alert. Its alert system has been let go to sleep, I think, for a long time, and now it's gradually awakening. Not the kind of alert system that the comedian John Cleese recently wrote about for Australia. He said, it rises from a low level called "no worries, mate, she'll be right," to "crikey, I think we'd better cancel the Barbie this weekend." And the ultimate, but so far never used, the Barbie is cancelled. Now, the kind of leadership needed is one prepared to think for themselves, not succumb to the tyranny of a majority, and to preserve and protect one of our cherished rights, which is the right to freedom of speech, one which is under attack so often these days by those who seek to cancel or to deplatform anyone with whose views they disagree. To speak out against wrongs and wrongheadedness is important, and to speak out against those who would cancel or deplatform others because they don't like what they have to say is just so wrong. And as Edmund Burke said, all that is needed for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. So you good people, make sure it's not nothing, it's a lot. Australia is one of the oldest democracies in the world based on principles that we must zealously guard. It's a matter of great concern that surveys by the Lowe Institute reveal that a significant portion of Australians between the years of 18 to 29 do not believe democracy is preferable to any other form of government. Let them try another form and see how they fare. As Churchill once said, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the other forms that have been tried. So it's for you, young emerging leaders, you good people, to take up the challenge. You're blessed with the materials to build a bridge to the moon, as Thoreau once said. Don't, as he also said, just use it to build a shed. Thank you.